In this week's episode of the Learn It Do It podcast, we dive into how to set your pricing and how to gain confidence selling your products and services. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to the Learn It Do It podcast. As always, I'm your host, Pete, joined by my lovely wife and co-host, Ree.
Hello.
And today we are going to talk about how to price yourself.
I love this topic because, especially when you're starting out, but even just being in business for yourself, pricing is this really challenging thing that you have to just figure out.
It's
right?
so scary because you have no idea what to do and there's no guideline for it.
Right. I mean, it's totally up to you is what it is. I think that's what makes it so challenging is that it's totally up to you. You can choose your pricing completely. And that means you're on the hook for it.
Right. And there's two facets of this. There's you're starting a business and you have no idea what to start at or how to do this. And is anyone really going to pay you what you want? And then there's the other side of I've been in business for a while. I'm doing well. It's paying my bills, but I'm kind of burnt out and I don't have the fire and drive that I had because I'm not where I wanted to go.
Right. Or like I'm not, living the life I want to live because in order to make the money I want to make, I have to work so much or whatever it is. And
right.
Yeah. So I think pricing is something that we talk about a lot with our clients. We restructure things, we create packages, and we help them determine what pricing is the best fit for their business and for their lifestyle, right? And so when our first voicemail came in, we were very excited that it was on the topic of pricing as a new business.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm about to play our first voicemail, but before I get started, we just wanted to say, hey guys, we want to hear from you with your voicemails. So obviously we haven't been able to have guests on like we used to. And so we thought a fun way to, still tackle your challenges would be to have people call in, leave a voicemail with the challenge they're facing in their business, and we'll be able to share it with the rest of you on our podcast. So our first voicemail today is from Cyrinda. So we'll have a listen and then we'll talk about it.
Hello, my name's Cyrinda. My company is M&Row. I've been in business for about 3 years off and on, but really got serious about it over the last year. I make handmade luxury coconut soy wax candles as well as other home fragrance options, diffusers and things, room sprays, and then organic body butters and stuff like that. I've done a lot of custom projects recently where I work with other small businesses to create a signature scent for them. Um, and I've kind of struggled with, pricing as far as what I should be charging these other small businesses, to feel like it's worth their while to work with me, where, it is a very special offer. And I know that not a lot of local candle makers do that. So I'm not really sure what I should be charging for a service like this, as well as, I've started doing wholesale as well with some other local boutiques and things. And I'm struggling with kind of finding a happy place to figure out what I should be charging wholesale as well. Is there like a one size fits all formula for that? So any insight you guys could provide with, pricing and feeling comfortable with setting your prices would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. So, Cyrinda has a lot of things kind of going on in her business, but what I think is great is let's just really focus on kind of the basics of setting your pricing. And one of the things I really like that she mentioned is feeling comfortable in your pricing.
That's really important.
So that's really going to be our focus today as we kind of dive into what it takes to come up with your pricing and build that confidence.
Right. So, for instance, Cyrinda is a newer business. She's said off and on. So for 3 years, she's been selling her product at a price that she's found comfortable enough for herself. But now that she's started looking to expand and grow into an actual full-time venture, we need to look into how is this going to work for her based on what she's selling, how much it costs her, and all the time she puts into it. So what's the first thing? Where do we start when you're looking to expand yourself or you're looking to you have a new product and you need to find where's the starting place to price yourself?
So I think the easiest place to start, and this happens for a lot of people, but first you look at your competition, right? And I mean that very specifically when I say your competition. Like Cyrinda's not going to look and say, what does Yankee Candle charge for candles? Because Yankee Candle is not her competition,
Right.
right? And that's because, they produce many candles. They're looking for a different market. Those aren't handmade candles, right? So she does need to look very specifically for somebody similar to what she's offering and probably geographically similar as well, right? Somebody in the same local market that's selling similar products to her and just kind of figure out what it is that her competition is
Right.
is
Also
offering.
look at to where they're selling these candles. So find out
Correct.
that's going to help you find out who these local competitors are. Where do you sell your candles? Who else is selling them in similar spaces? Make sure you're looking along the same wavelengths there so you can start out in the right spot.
Right. And I think all that does is really tell you what the market can bear. Okay. So that's not necessarily like, okay, here's the formula. You charge exactly what those people are charging. It's just showing you, okay, if your audience, right, the people that you're trying to reach, your niche target audience, is paying this much for similar candles in a similar space, well, they'll probably pay a similar price for yours. This is a great starting point. Okay.
Right. So next, I think we look at what are you looking to compete on?
Right. How do you position yourself? Perfect,
Exactly.
Pete. So when you think about how you position yourself, you want to think about three things. You either want to compete on quality, convenience, or price.
Yeah.
And you can't do all three.
No, you can't.
You can only choose one. And so in Cyrinda's case, she wants to focus on quality, right? She
Right.
said handmade, these are luxury candles, right? So it's quality that she wants to compete on. And so if she's doing quality, then she's not looking to produce hundreds of thousands of candles.
Not looking for volume, right?
She is not looking for volume, right? So, what I wanted to point out with quality is when you're looking at quality, you either do quality or quantity. And this is important, right? When we started our portrait business, we knew that we didn't want to do hundreds of photo shoots a week.
Right.
Because we couldn't, right? But we didn't want to do hundreds of photo shoots a week. We wanted to do maybe, 10 to 20 photo shoots a week. And so if we wanted to do that, we were not looking at a volume business model, which meant our pricing needed to align ourselves to not be a volume business. Right. You can't charge volume pricing, right? That lower cost pricing because you're going to make up for it in the amount of jobs you do. If you want to do a less amount of jobs. Right. So, Cyrinda has to think about that. And when you're starting your business, it's important to figure out, okay, where do you want to fall as far as your competition goes and how do you want to compete and, what that position is for yourself. And once you know that, and you know whether or not you're going first for quality versus quantity, that's also going to help you align yourself for your pricing.
Correct. You also want to think a little bit about, have you thought about your specific target audience? Don't just think about your competition and what they're doing because you should keep your eyes on your own paper here and focus on what you're doing because your brand, you might have similar products, but your brand might be in a different, direct space or you might be headed in a different direction,
Right.
And so you want to make sure that you are very comfortable and clear with who your target audience is and just make sure that as you're looking at these competitors and you're analyzing what's going on and then you look at your own business and decide, okay, I want to go for quality and then look at, okay, who is my target audience and really make sure that you understand who they are. And then you can get into the nitty gritty of the price and cost and everything like that.
Right. And I think the example we used to use when we would talk about our photography business is that, I would never spend $500 on a purse, right? Or I wouldn't spend $500 on a haircut. But somebody who does spend $500 on a haircut would never spend $20 on a haircut.
Right.
Okay. Like it's just a totally different space. So, we were looking for clients who did have a $500 purse, who would spend over $300 on, their haircut and their, maintenance of their physical selves.
Because chances are they're going to spend in the thousands for their family portraits.
Exactly. And so we got really specific about who we wanted to reach. So think about the people that you're trying to reach and what they're willing to spend and on other products, right? And think about how that plays into what you're offering.
Right. And in Cyrinda's example, she can look at the individual consumer, like people that might be buying from her Etsy store or her website or something. But now, as she's starting this new venture within her business and this new product line, she needs to create a target audience of small businesses.
Right.
What kind of shops are you looking for? What kind of businesses are you looking for? Salons? Are you looking for restaurants? Where will your candle go?
Right.
and who's looking for that. And so create a target audience for that. And
Yeah.
that's gonna help you really get a good idea of where your pricing needs to fall, and especially like with your goals in the forefront of your mind.
Right. And actually, you just brought up a good point. There is a difference between, B2C, selling directly to a consumer, and B2B, right?
Right.
Because when you're selling to a business, they're not just buying the candle to have in their restaurant. They are selling, likely they are selling it. And so when they need to make profit, and this is what she was talking about a little bit with, her wholesale pricing. Oh, well, your first thought is, well, they need to make profit, so I should lower my pricing so that they can make profit. That is not going to work for your business.
Here's a pro tip: always put your business first.
Yes,
when,
put your
when it
business
comes to
first.
this.
That is how you stay in business, right? And everybody wants you to stay in business, even the
Correct.
people buying from you
Yeah.
to sell, right? But you do need to think about that when somebody is a business and they are looking to sell it. Well, that's an opportunity you're providing them, right?
Yeah, correct.
You are giving them an income opportunity.
Right.
So it doesn't mean chop your price in half so that they can make money. But it does mean, you shuffle your pricing a little bit so that there is room for both of you, but you are selling a tremendous value.
Right. You're trying to create a win-win situation because you want them to buy the candles from you, and you want your candles to be sold through their store or wherever they're selling them.
Right.
And so you need to create a happy medium where they're happy with what you're providing, their customers are happy with what they're getting at the price that they're getting it for. And so it's a supply chain that needs to make sense.
Right. And actually, this brings me to kind of my next point, right? And so the reason you can shuffle your pricing like that is because there are a few other things that shift in what you need to put into that sale. Okay. So when you're basing your pricing and trying to create that pricing foundation, once you kind of have an idea of what's going on in the market, right? And you've kind of surveyed that, then you want to think about, okay, where are these numbers coming from? So for your business, you need to think about the hard costs that are associated with your product or service.
Now, let me just be a little specific here. Hard cost isn't just what you need to make a candle in Cyrinda's case. It's not just the jar. It's not just the wax or whatever she uses and the wicks and the scents. Okay?
Right, but we are going to start there, right? Because we have that's the easiest.
I'm going to give
thing.
it the broad stroke. What I'm just saying, we're getting into something bigger than just those hard costs.
Correct.
But yes, the step one, you're going to start with the physical product that you have, the things that you make,
the money that you have to pay out for things to do what you do.
Correct.
Right. Then you need to think about the hard costs of actually running your business. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people kind of forget to take into account, right? But you had to start an LLC, right? You need to register that business every year. You probably need insurance for your business.
Correct.
You need things like shipping. Maybe you have an office and you have overhead that you have to pay for. Or, in Cyrinda's case, I'm sure she prints her labels, right? So she has to print her labels, and that might be something she does only several times and not per product.
Yeah.
But it's important to take that into
cost.
account, right? It's still a cost that happens for your business. So there's like kind of that overhead of your business that needs to account for those costs. In addition to that, you need to think about your time.
Correct. This is the biggest one that we all slip up. We've all failed at this at some point in our careers.
Yeah.
We personally did it as well, where you think that your product or service, they're paying for that, and that you're just doing it, and you're, to charge what you want to make is kind of, fraudulent, I guess, and you just don't have the confidence to do it or whatever it may be.
Actually, and I think it starts with that idea of like, so when we started our business, we started debt free, right? We didn't go to a bank and get out a loan. We needed to make money and we wanted to start a business. And so we did what we call sweat equity, right?
Yep.
And this is where I think a lot of us as, self-employed business owners start out. We're going to do the sweat equity. So that means I work for free.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm going to do everything I can to get my business off the ground because I am free labor right now. And that's a great way to start, right? It makes sense, rather than, taking out a bunch of debt for your business, it allows you to get started. But the problem is we don't always think of a way to get ourselves out of that.
Correct. There's no escape plan or exit strategy because you start working, you start collecting money, you start getting clients, and then now you have, maybe 20, 30 clients. And then how do you say, oh, now I'm going to start charging for my own time?
Right. And you also, like, as you get to that point, even if you start to have those thoughts, you start to feel guilty for paying yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like we talk to business owners all the time who work for free or almost free, right? Like they feel like they're paying themselves, but
Right.
they're not paying themselves what they're worth, and they start to realize like, wow, like this is actually really taking a toll on my business. And that's what you were
Correct.
getting at earlier, right?
Yeah.
Is that you start to feel super run down because
Right.
you're not being compensated well for the
Right.
work you're doing.
And this can kind of tie into the podcast we did a few episodes ago on your relationship with money. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that, because this all works together. This is all
Right.
one giant like synergist like structure that you're trying to build, because without one you can't have the other. You need to make sure that you're working as a whole, complete, healthy body here.
Right.
And so you got to get your mind right so that you can get your business right. And so thinking about pricing yourself, like how much you have to figure out after you figure out your cost and your overhead and your time.
Mhm.
Write all those down, figure out all those numbers, and don't leave anything to spare. If you paid for it, it's on the page.
Mhm.
If you spent the time for it, it's on the page.
Right.
The next thing you need to do is figure out how much it costs to keep your business afloat.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Like what actually goes into making your business stay a business.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we also don't take into account things like, marketing, right? Or sale, like, the things that you try and do to drum up business.
Right.
A lot of small businesses don't take that into account, and it's hard to grow if you're not doing anything to actually bring in
Right.
people for your
especially the
business.
marketing side of things. You start out and say, oh, I can do that myself. Well, for the person who, if it's you doing all the work to create the product, sell the product, ship the product, and now you're the marketing department, well, you're not getting paid for that either. So now you're just digging yourself in a deeper
All
hole.
of those hats get very heavy on your head.
It's so true. It's so true. The other thing about setting pricing is how much money do you personally, put your business aside,
Mhm.
how much money do you need to make? Not your business. How much money do you individually need to make to live the lifestyle that you're looking to live with this business?
Right. And actually, I think that's important because when we start out, many of us start out with your business as a side business,
Yeah.
right? So you don't necessarily need money from your business to stay afloat.
Right.
You might have money coming from other places so that this is something you want to start. But if you want this business to be your full-time thing, if you want to grow this to be a business that does sustain your life, well, you need to start paying yourself
Yeah. And
appropriately.
it needs to be a formula. It's
Right.
just math. You have to take
Exactly.
the emotion out of it and make it a math equation.
Yep.
You need to make the math work.
So I like to think about it as like kind of like a time value formula. And this will be a little bit different when you start out in business than it is as you grow, right? Because when you first start out, you just need to make enough to make enough,
You
right?
need to make enough just to keep going.
Right, to keep going.
Right.
Exactly. And then you're going to have your ultimate goal, which is the amount of money that you want to make, or that you want to make. That's the difference. First,
Right.
it's what you need to make.
Yeah.
Then it's what you want to make.
Right.
And so you have to figure that out, those numbers. But it should be really clear, right? How much do you need to charge for your time so that you can live the life you want to live, or hire someone else,
Right.
which is important. We'll get to that in a second. Or, utilize software to make your life easier, whatever it is. But how much do you need to charge for your time in order to make what you want to make and live the life you want to
Right.
live?
And we're saying make what you want to make. You actually have to think about this. You can't just say, oh, I want to be rich.
Right.
Or, oh, I want $1 million.
Yeah. For example, Cyrinda can't say, I would like to make $1 million and I would like to make 2 candles. Therefore, my candles are $500,000.
Start at $500,000. Any takers. So you have to really think about, okay, where's the price breaks on what my first goal to hit as my business or my personal income to start going towards where I want to be, and make it actually realistic and tangible.
Right. Make it tangible. So for example, like if you want to make $1,000 a week and you can put maybe 25 hours a week into your business, well, then you need to charge at least $40 an hour for your time.
Right.
Right.
And that's just for your time. That's not the
Right.
cost of everything else.
Exactly.
That's for your time so that you can make that money
Right.
for yourself.
And then you take that $40 an hour and all the other expenses that you have, and you add those all up, and you divide them by the services or the products that you sell, and that should give you a number,
that should
right?
give you the number for sure.
And that's again, these are just places to start. This is your choice, right? You choose.
That's why it's so difficult. It is 100% up to you, but everyone has to deal with this, and it's an okay thing. Just as long, like, the whole point here is we're giving you a formula. If you check all the boxes on as we keep going, you'll find out that, like, you can start to see that these numbers come from somewhere, and it feels really good as you keep going.
Right, exactly.
And so that's why I want to talk about, like, so once you kind of figure out your pricing, right? Because we've gone through what you need to figure out the cost, figure out how much time you want to put in, and how much you're worth, and all that stuff. Now, how do we get ourselves to be like confident to stand up there and say, "Hi, I would like to sell you my stuff for all the money that I'm looking to get."
I love that. So, to me, the initial step and where this confidence first comes from is doing the work that we just said, right? Actually coming up with a strategy and mapping out things that make sense and what actually goes into your pricing. Because when your pricing isn't just a number that you have arbitrarily picked or a number that you saw on someone else's price tag,
right? Well, and
you will
actually,
feel more confident.
You know what? We talked about the imposter syndrome a few weeks ago as well, and I think that when you start out and you just pick pricing based on someone else or based on something that you don't actually know for sure in your business, that imposter syndrome will creep up big time and will end up hurting you. And so if you go through this process and actually figure out your hard numbers and make it a formula, then that imposter syndrome, it just is quiet and you don't even think about it because you actually have real tangible numbers as to why this costs this much.
Right. And I think to take that a next step, you can't just do this formula and say, okay, now I've done it. The confidence comes from writing it down. For me, I actually have like a price list. I have a sheet of paper, or it's digital actually, but I have a spreadsheet where I have every service that we offer and the price next to it with the amount of time it takes and the amount of money that I have to spend to do that. And
let me interject for 1 second. And I'm very happy we have this. And it took us about 5 or 6 years before we had this type of pricing sheet, because we would have our pricing, we'd come up with it, and then we wouldn't write it down in a concise formula or system. And then what would happen is every time someone wanted to hire us for something, we would sit down and agonize for about 3 hours trying to price this job as it was something brand new that we've never done before. And it's slightly different from the other things we did. And we used to get so stressed out about creating proposals because we didn't just organize how much stuff cost and how much time stuff took. And yes, it was a little bit of a chore to sit down because we offer a lot of things. We offer a lot of services that take time. So we had to kind of estimate, okay, this is what this is how much this this is how much time this takes to do. This is how much we need to get paid for it. This is how much our contractors cost. We had to figure out all that stuff. But now when someone comes to us, I basically just click, 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 good to go.
Right. Exactly. I just know what I need to put into place, and it's easy to answer that question. And you're right. This did stem from many, many, many years of stressfully answering the question, like, how much would it be to do that?
How much would it be to do that? And it's we do this all the time. Why are we
why am I stressed about it? Right. And it felt like it was because we were in this space, and, Cyrinda's in a similar space right now talking about these custom candles. You're doing something custom, and all of a sudden you feel like, well, custom means it's completely unique for each and every person. And you ignore the fact that there are very similar processes that you repeat over and over again that will allow you to structure your pricing in a way that is pretty standardized, right? And you're in control of the business. You can still, make exceptions. I remember when we were, doing our photography business, we had very strict pricing. But friends and family got a 50% off discount because I didn't know how to price things for my family, and forever that was stressful. And finally, it was just like, that's how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to give them that discount, and that's how that works. And so, you find ways to make yourself comfortable with the things that you want to offer in your business.
And you'll find too is, you're not going to have every answer right off the bat. So when you're starting out something new, you're going to try something once with one client and see how it worked, and then change it and switch it up, and you get another client and try it there. And so within each client, you can actually shapeshift a little bit just to get your system to work better for yourself. And you just keep fine tuning your process and how you talk about it in your pricing sheet so that you feel really comfortable and kind of feel in a groove.
Right. Don't be afraid of the revision. Something else that I think will help you create confidence in your pricing is actually creating packages, right? Now, this can happen for products you offer or for services that you offer. It falls more in the service space, I think. But if you can create packages that will allow you to build the value that makes sense, right, and help you price things out, you're also being that trusted advisor for your client and helping them decide what makes sense for them, right? So rather than them buying the one a la carte service, you are able to bundle some of your pricing together.
Right. I think a good example for Cyrinda may be okay, if you have your custom scent, you package that around like a wholesale candle price for a certain cutoff, maybe 50 candles or whatever it might be, 40 candles,
Right.
and you package that together and give it a price break so that it makes sense, but you're
Yes.
getting paid for what you need. You're batching all the candle making together, so you're saving costs there,
Right.
and then you can deliver it, and so you just create a better system for yourself by making the package, and it's so much easier to sell than if you
Right.
had to go sell 40 individual scented, candles.
Absolutely. And actually, that's a perfect point, Pete, because, if Cyrinda needs to make one candle, that's going to take a certain amount of time, right? Let's say it takes her 40 minutes or let's say it takes her an hour to make 4 candles.
Yeah.
Okay. But it wouldn't take her 2 hours to make 8 candles.
Correct.
Right. Maybe in 2 hours she could make 12 candles.
Right.
Right. So you start to think about packaging your pricing so that it actually makes sense and you can pass some of those price breaks off.
Right.
And this is a great place where wholesale comes into place. This is what I was talking about earlier, where the reason you can give a business a discount is because, one, they are getting the client. So now you don't have to spend what you're normally spending on marketing, right?
Yep.
You don't have to do the sales process and doing that time. So that's saving you time there. And for these people, I would have them buy in bulk,
Right.
so that you are giving them the discount of they're making a bunch of candles. You're making a bunch of candles at one time to send to them. And so you're able to give a price break on that because you're making more candles in the same amount of time.
In the same space, wholesaling comes from the buying and selling side. So buying, now that you know you're going to be selling this, bulk candle, you can
Yes.
buy in bulk, which will save you costs on that side.
Right.
And just because you got a cost savings on that side does not mean you have to then say like, oh, well, I saved $200 buying it, so this time, so I'm going to give you a discount this time. You don't have to do that.
Right.
You've worked that concept in, to your pricing so that the structure and strategy works for you.
Yeah. So exactly. So those are all things that you can come into play and also help you build that confidence in your pricing. Right now, you know where that's coming from. The other thing that is super important, and it sounds like a chicken or the egg thing, right? But stick to your pricing, right? And I know that feels like you need the confidence to stick to your pricing before you can stick to your pricing. But if you just tell yourself, I am sticking to my pricing, this is my pricing, I have written it down, this is it, that is going to build confidence for you.
Yeah, for sure. And when you're in the situation where someone's questioning you on your pricing, it's super easy to get like super nervous and kind of like start backtracking. And something we always tell people to do is just put the onus on the third party. Say, oh, if someone asked you for a discount, like say in Cyrinda's case, a vendor wants to ask for a discount, she says, oh, you know what? I got to go check with my business advisors to make sure that, that to see that that's a good idea or not.
Right.
Because this is my pricing and I can't really move it, but I'll check with them and see what's up. Or
see if we can
or
do
you
something.
could say, or, that's actually seeing if you could change it and you shouldn't do that. What you should say is, my business advisors help me set this pricing and this is what I need to do to make my business stay afloat. Or so,
right.
Give it a good excuse. Obviously, I'm just coming off the cuff here.
Right.
You can think about this ahead of time.
But yeah, saying something like, oh, I would love to give you a discount, but unfortunately, not unfortunately, but this is where, my pricing came from. I actually build this pricing so that my business can stay afloat and this is what my price needs to be. But something I can do is come up with some sort of value add that you can give to them.
Right.
Maybe, maybe I can give you a 10% off next time you come. I don't know.
And just to clarify, you don't have to show them where your pricing came from. Like you just mentioned, like, oh, this is where it came from. You don't have to say, these are the hours and this is,
no,
you don't have to say any of that, but you just have to be confident. And the idea is that if someone asks you, can I get a discount, and say, actually, my pricing, I can't move on my pricing. And, I put this together with, my advisors and, this is just what it is.
Right. I used to say like, well, I didn't just make up this number.
Yeah.
This pricing is actually, organized and comes from something.
And think about yourself too. Think about yourself as a customer all the time. Whenever you're nervous about pricing, think about yourself as a customer. When you go to buy something, whether it's a service or product, and someone says, here's the price, and you look at it and say, well, I really want it and I can afford the price. You don't ask any other questions. Like your thought process is only thinking about yourself. Like, how much does it cost? Do I really want it? And that's that. So it's silly to think that every customer is going to start picking apart, behind the curtain. They're not really thinking about that. Now, obviously, when Cyrinda's talking to other business owners, they might, they know how to ask questions like, hey, is there any breaks you can give? I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask for a break.
Right. You can't fault people for asking.
Right. But just have a couple sentences that you're comfortable saying, that you can just say that to them. And the other thing I wanted to mention about this confidence, especially when it comes down to you paying yourself. So like once you look at your pricing and you realize, hey, I have to up my prices so that I get paid, the way to be confident about that is to actually do some research and look at how much it would cost to hire someone to do all the things you do in your business.
Yes, this is such a good confidence builder.
Think about that, because like I said earlier, when we talked about how many hats you're wearing, you're the shipping department, you're the manufacturing department, you're the sales, you're customer service, you're the marketing.
You're probably bookkeeping.
Okay, so each of those are minimally like $50,000 a year jobs. Obviously, you're not going to pay yourself, $400,000 a year. Well, you might if you're doing well, but the idea is to give yourself the confidence to get paid what you need. You are doing all those jobs,
Right.
so make sure you just go ahead and Google it and just figure out how much on average that somebody in these departments would make.
Right.
And just give yourself that boost of confidence so that you can say, you know what? Yeah,
You
I'm
deserve it.
sticking to this. It's on my sheet. It's written. It's dried ink on the page.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And just really don't look back. And you know what? If someone says no, thank you, who
It's
cares?
okay.
Your goal in business is not to chase money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't need to chase money. You're putting yourself in the wrong spot if you are desperate and you're chasing it.
Right.
Remember that you have a proper client that you're going after, you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking for you. You've already done the research. That's why we did all this. We've done the research. We know
Right.
our audience. We know where we're placed in the market. We know what we're doing, and now we know we're priced properly. And you're giving a good product. So just be confident about it.
Right.
And if someone says no to you, well, the next time someone's going to say yes. I mean, it always works out when it doesn't work out, it always works out.
Right.
Because the very next person might be the best client or the best referrer. You might find Cyrinda might find a business that's like, hey, I want to wholesale from you. Hey, also, I know like 5 other businesses that want to wholesale from you.
Right.
And just because the person right before that said no, you don't get yourself down about that. Someone else will, this will happen. This will happen for you. You just got to keep your head up and keep yourself on the road that you set for yourself when you start your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing too that kind of helped build confidence for me is knowing when and if I was going to offer discounts, right?
Yep.
And so I did have that built in. So the example I just said, right? Like for friends and family, I offered a flat, this is the discount I give for friends and family. And that gave me a ton of confidence because anytime our friends or family wanted to support my business, I felt uncomfortable, right?
Right.
Charging like the full price for them,
And
right?
the reason is because they're not our target audience.
Right.
But
Right.
but they knew us and we took photos and they were looking for photos. But they're not my market, so I had to come up with a solution that made me comfortable. I would like to work with them, but they weren't going to pay me thousands of dollars.
Right.
So
And I also didn't want to make it like, very wishy-washy and awkward in this awkward conversation. So instead, I just got really clear about it. And I said, okay, I'm just going to offer this flat discount for friends and family. And this is what I do. And this is how I do that. And I created a whole process for it. And it just made it simple and easy. So then when people did want to support our business that weren't quite our target audience, but they were supporting us because of their relationship with us, it was very easy for me to say like, totally. And here's what I charge for that.
right.
And, they felt, good about it. They felt like they could support our business. And I felt good about it because I wasn't just ignoring my pricing
Right.
or making up special pricing for them,
So now we have our pricing. We're confident about it. Now, how do we go forward with this? Now, like I said, I alluded to earlier that it's kind of like trial by error. You go and you are forming your pricing over time. And then you get into a good groove.
Yeah.
And then where do you go from there?
So, yes, I do want to get there. And what I wanted to say first, just to interject, is that you have to start where you're comfortable, right? So just like you're saying, there's a place like we're on a road and we're going somewhere, but you also need to start where you're comfortable. So part of that confidence is built by starting at a number that you feel comfortable saying
Mm-hmm.
and gaining the experience that you need.
If you can't say the number out loud to another human, that's probably not the place to start.
That is not the place to start. Yeah, like if you look at it, you're like, there's no way, right?
If you go to say like, yeah, it'll be, and you feel like you're gonna throw up on them, you got to start with the number that you're comfortable with,
Right.
And it makes sense still. It still has to make sense for you and your business,
Right. So you do the numbers, you figure out, but like there is a place where you start where it's like, okay, this is the bare minimum that I can charge to still be a business and stay afloat. But I feel like I can say it and I can confidently sell that. And you start there. But know that your pricing will and should change over
Right.
time.
Right.
Totally normal thing to do.
It's a fluid document.
Right.
It will change because in Cyrinda's case, so you start offering this custom scent. You start wholesaling candles. You have packages. Maybe you're creating your business starts cash flowing. Maybe you hire a little bit of help and you start doing a little bit more volume than you're used to.
Right.
And then maybe that opens the doors to another tier of your business, another level, and you need to be ready to kind of grow into that level.
Right.
And it's okay that you start charging more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the hourly pricing for you who wears all the hats, but also gets to keep all the money, right, at the end of the day, is going to be different than the pricing that you need to charge to hire 3 or 4 people to do your job. And that's okay. That's totally normal.
Well, and it goes back to the goals you set. Like your goal in your business is to make a better lifestyle for yourself. That's the whole point of doing this. Otherwise, what are we doing?
Right.
So your goal is to be taking steps to grow your lifestyle, not just monetarily, but maybe in time, whatever your personal goals are. That's what you need to be focused on the whole time. And that's what you base all of this off of.
Right.
Like for me personally, I don't want to work 40 hours a week. I don't even want to work 20 hours a week. I want to figure out a way where I can continue my business to be growing. I can leverage my business so that I can create the lifestyle that I'm looking for, and I can start other things and projects that I'm excited about.
Right.
That's my personal goal. Your personal goal might be you want to make $5 million in the next 3 years. Okay, well, that's going to take a lot of time and effort on your part, but you can do that. But that's your personal prerogative. Prerogative?
Prerogative.
All right. Vocab.
I like that word. And when you think about pricing, you also need to feel comfortable raising your pricing, right? And so something I feel like was really important is just start by saying that you are offering an introductory rate.
Right. This is so important for people who are just starting their business, because you don't want to put yourself in a box that you just kind of have to squirm out of and put yourself in a weird position. And it's just so squeamish when that happens. So use the language to your advantage.
Right.
And just know better to say, hey, this is my introductory pricing. We're just getting off the ground. If you'd like to, take advantage of it and try our products and services, now's a great time to do that.
Right. And this is great. And I also think this is important because those first customers that start coming to you are probably also going to refer you.
Correct.
Right. You want that to happen. Yeah. And so if they're getting this special pricing because they're new, but they don't know it's special, they're going to spread the word about your absolutely cheap starting out pricing to other people, and now you're going to have awkward conversations. We want to avoid awkward conversations as much as possible. And so, if you can start by being very honest and saying, like, this is our introductory pricing, it's not saying when your pricing is changing, it's not saying what it's going to be, but that the pricing that you open with, the pricing you have today, is not going to be the same moving forward. Right. So just say it, set the expectations, and then there's no problem, right? Like the customers are happy, you're happy. It also gives them some incentive to kind of buy now, right?
Yeah.
And then something else I like to do when changing pricing, and this makes me feel more comfortable, is when I initially change pricing, I only change it for new customers, right? So I kind of grandfather in my existing clients. Now, this might not always work in your business, right? Like for Cyrinda's candles, I don't think everybody that came to her initially can keep the same pricing, right? But it does work for things if somebody's paying for something on a monthly basis, or it's a service that they're using all the time. You can grandfather people in, like it's your business. You do what you want, right?
You can also do too is you grandfather the people in, but if it is something like ongoing where eventually you're going to have to up the pricing, you can send out an email and say, hey, my pricing's going up. You're grandfathered in until the end
definitely
of the year,
set a deadline,
or set a deadline, because if your business is growing, you can't have this low bearing fruit that's taking up a lot of time and resources of your business,
right?
Where you need to be spending all that, where you're making your real money.
Yeah, exactly. So
not to say that those people aren't important. It's just your business is growing and you need to make sure that everything grows with it.
Right. And your customers want your business to be successful, right? Like I think that's something that we often forget, is that your customers want you to be in business. They do not want to suck you dry until you are not in business anymore. It doesn't benefit anybody. So, just being honest with them is helpful. And then, giving a heads up to existing clients, encouraging them to kind of act now and save, right? Like buy now before pricing are changing. And then schedule yourself a pricing review on a regular basis.
Right.
Okay. And like this is important because this will allow you just like the ease of saying, yes, I can change my pricing. Yeah. So, maybe it's every 6 months, maybe it's once a year, whatever is comfortable for you. But definitely review the numbers we talked about at the beginning of this podcast and make sure that everything's still making sense. Yeah. Make sure you're still enjoying it, right? Like maybe you looked at it and you're like, actually, I'm spending way more time than I thought I was, which means that $40 an hour is actually $10 an hour, and I'm feeling
that's very important. You need to track your time especially when you're starting out, so that you actually know how long things take.
Oh my God, this is
Because
something we messed up on.
big time. We did track our time. We then didn't matter. It's just me. I don't care. I'll just do it. It's my business. It's my business. I own it. But the point is that you don't want to do all these jobs all the time. You need to know how long these jobs take so that you can eventually hire out,
Right.
so that you can start creating an actual business and you're not just self-employed where you're just doing everything and you're stuck in that one spot.
Right. And I think, especially when you're starting out, there's a lot of things that might lack structure, right?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have a 9 to 5 because, every time I talk to somebody who's self-employed, they're like, what's a 9 to 5? I'm working all the time. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
But
set boundaries.
very important. But, we often work, random hours or whatever it is. And so you have to take into account all of the time that you spend on your business, right? Cyrinda's business isn't just when she sits and makes candles.
Correct. Right.
Her business is more than that, right? She has to send emails, she has to do social media posts, she has to meet with clients and try and get her candles in stores. There's a lot more.
Look for new suppliers.
Right.
I mean, she there's so much to do to start growing this and build a healthy business that you need to really account for all of that time. And it's just the more data you have, the more decisions you can make for your business, because you have the factual evidence that gives you confidence and that gives it just an easy springboard to jump to the next level.
Right. And I remember in our business, like there was a service we offered that we felt like made us a ton of money, right? It was definitely a high ticket item for us. But when we actually did out the math to figure out how much time we spent on that service, by the end of it, we were making like $4 an hour.
Yeah.
And it was deflating.
It was.
But we felt it. And that's the only reason we figured out that situation is because we felt really drained. And we were like, why is this draining us so much? Because we thought it was a really profitable part of our business. And when we looked at the numbers, it was not.
Right, because for the time we looked at it, and the chunk of time it took us to do the actual thing was like, oh, we are just doing that, in a day or two. But in reality, the whole process took, over a year.
Yeah, it was like over 60 hours of time.
Yeah,
it was like a lot.
It was so much time. And then the expense, we had to pay a lot to be able to do it, for gear, for help, for all this stuff. And so at the end of the day, when we did out the math, we were making like $5 an hour.
Right.
And I just looked at Rhea and I was like, this is unacceptable. We need to change this. And
Right.
when you realize that, you either need to pivot out of offering that service, is what we did, or you need to figure out a better solution for pricing and start accounting for all of that time.
Yeah, exactly. Either way, it's enlightening and helpful for your business.
Yeah. And I think back to the new business, you should definitely be looking at your pricing a lot. So like we said, maybe 6 months. I would start every quarter, because
when
everything's
you're new,
brand new. And like I said, do it for the first 2 years at least, client to client basis. Look at your pricing sheet. Make are you selling what you're looking to sell? Are people buying it? Are they easily saying yes?
Yeah.
That's a big thing. If you start selling to people and they're like, yeah, no problem. Well, guess what? You can charge more for that.
Yep. Yep.
Because it's great that you're getting what your goal is. I'm not saying just you immediately have to just charge people more because they bought what you're selling.
But it says the value's there.
But it says that the value's there. If people really want it, and it's just an easy, like, yeah, no problem, no brainer. You don't have to explain yourself. Like, that feels good selling it because you're like, whew, the pressure's
Easy.
off of me. But you think about that as a business owner and say, they would have paid more for this.
Right. And especially in the service-based business, right? So for us, when we put together, our proposals for people, we have 3 different options. And this is something Cyrinda could do on the business to business side, right? Is give a few different options. And I can't remember who told us, I forgive me. But somebody said, when someone buys your most expensive package, that becomes your middle package, right? And we were like, oh, that sounded really scary at the time. But once it started happening, we realized like, oh, well, that's because people are willing to pay it because the value's there. And so that actually means that I can, have a bigger package. And we always kind of priced out when we were doing those services, like the lowest is like, this is the package that I think people would buy. This one would be a little bit more ideal. And this would be my dream. Like if somebody picked this top package, I would just like like jump up and down for days and be so excited. And we did that for a long time and it was awesome.
Right.
And it felt so good when people chose those higher packages, because we realized like it really built our confidence and it showed that we were really worth what we were charging.
Right. And so if people are buying your highest package, and like as we said earlier, businesses know other businesses from that same kind of sphere, the same circles, well, I guarantee they're going to refer other businesses from the same, the same deep
Right.
pockets that want to do the same thing, that see the value in what you're doing. And that's when you can level up. And that's why you have to understand where your pricing is, to understand like, okay, this is a moment for me. So that a lot of people have bought my top package. Well, guess what? That's now my middle package. And I'm setting a new height so that we can grow to where we want to go.
Right,
Grow.
right, exactly. And when Cyrinda was talking about this new service that she's offering, right, these custom scents for businesses to sell, she used a lot of words that I wanted to pull out because I felt like they were important, right? So she said like signature and custom and handmade, luxury,
Collection.
boutique, collection, right? These are all very high-end words, which means she might look at the numbers and say, oh, okay, well, sitting down with them takes 1 hour and I'm going to charge myself $40 an hour. So that's $40. And then, making the candles is whatever, and this is the price of the candles. But there's a value there
Right.
that is bigger than
It's
just the
it's
time you're
intangible.
spending.
Right. There's no price. There's no one to tell you what the price is. It's the artistic value. It's the creative value. It's your intellectual property value. How do you value that? And for years, we struggled with this as a skills as photographers and videographers. We create all these things from our own brains
Right.
and give them to you. How do I charge the right amount for that?
Right. And it's hard. But I think, an easy way to think about it is like the Cyrinda that makes candles is not the same Cyrinda that is sitting making custom scents for a business.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. And that's the easiest way to think about it. It might be $40 an hour to make candles because she could hire somebody for that price, right?
Mhm.
To make those candles, or maybe a little bit less. You're the business owner, so I get you'd make more. But she can't, only she can do the signature scent building, right?
Yeah.
So that means that the price is different. And you can have a different hourly rate for the different things that you do.
Right.
So thinking about that, for Cyrinda, I think when you do something really custom and unique, and this is very prevalent in, the creative space, right? Like you said, this is your creative property, your intellectual property that you're putting together. Like you can have a rate that's different for that. Like just like we have a different rate for editing video than we do for consulting.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally different.
Yep.
So allow yourself that space in your business so that you can do what makes sense, but know that the value you're providing has a worth, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just the time or the money that was spent, but also the value and the opportunity that you're providing somebody
Correct.
else.
Especially in creative services for people, like, we're in the marketing space. Like, I have to look at it like if I'm writing a video script for somebody, I learn everything about their business. I'm writing them a script. I'm trying to do the best I can from my own brain and my own skills to make this video the best so that they can be successful and make a ton of money from it.
Right.
So if I just charge my like basic hourly rate to come up with all these ideas to then give it to them so that they can put out this marketing campaign and make tons of money
Over time, over and over again.
Right. And I get paid for that one time I made the video. Well, you have to kind of compensate for that with that intellectual creative space, and you do something that you're comfortable with. Like always do something that you're comfortable with, but just think about it. Just make sure that you know about it, and you can grow over time as you build confidence and build your portfolio, and get a customer base, and you'll find your sweet spot.
Right.
The whole thing with this is find your sweet spot, find what your goal is, and what's leading you to your goal. And just keep trying to replicate more of that.
Right. And like you said, try things out. I mean, sometimes, it was a few times in our business where we weren't really sure what to price something at. And we just, did this kind of math and put out a number that did make us nervous, right?
Yeah.
We were like, oh, this is a big number. And they bought it.
Like, yep.
And we were like, oh man. And that gave us such a spring and an energy and gave us so much confidence in ourselves and our pricing that from then on, like it really changed the way that we viewed our pricing and gave us the confidence we needed to charge what we wanted to live the life we wanted to live. And that's really the foundation where it all begins. So to kind of wrap this all up, lots of things we talked about, whether you're new in business or you have a new product or service, or you're just trying to kind of restructure things because you're not living the life you want.
Got the burnout going.
Yeah. These are the next 3 steps that I think you can take kind of based on what we talked about today. So first, really figure out those hard costs, both like per product, but also your business as a whole, right?
Yeah.
What it takes to run your business and make the products or services that you have. Then you really want to determine your hourly rate and start charging for your time.
Yeah, you have to figure out how much you want to make in a year and reverse engineer that.
Right.
To figure out how much
you need to charge.
You need to charge for yourself. So you have to figure out what you want to make, figure out how many products that you need to sell or how many services you need to sell based on that. And then you revert it all the way back into figuring out what that hourly rate is for
Yeah.
yourself so that makes sense for you.
Yep, I love that. And then lastly, like create yourself a pricing sheet.
Please.
Do it. Write it down.
Please, just write it down.
Just write it down. You can always change it. It's okay. But write it down so
Save
that you
yourself.
have it and you reference that and you base everything off of that. And that will give you the confidence you need to know your pricing comes from somewhere. It is real. You are providing value and there's a dollar attached to that. And that dollar comes to you.
Yep. And you'll be able to sell jobs easily without stress.
Yes. So that's the plan. Stick with it. Stick with your pricing. Be strong and go make the money you need to make to be successful.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. If you have any questions and challenges in your business, please go to our website, learnit-doit.com, and leave us a voicemail. We'd love to get into the nitty-gritty and help you figure out your challenge and break down those barriers and roadblocks. So please leave us a voicemail. We got some awesome episodes coming up.
So thanks for being with us, and we'll catch you next time.